She was an ordinary young woman, no riches, no family, just a quiet determination to keep going. One morning, she helped a tired-looking elderly woman at work, unaware that this single act would change the course of her entire life. Who was this mysterious old woman? And why did she see something in this girl that the rest of the world overlooked? Sit tight and listen closely, as we unfold the heartwarming and unexpected story of a young lady named Amora. Amora worked as a floor assistant in a sprawling supermarket located in the heart of Port Harcourt. She had no relatives, no connections, just her job and a rented room in a run-down part of the city. Her life was a daily battle for survival. But the moment she stepped in to help an elderly customer in need, everything began to shift. That morning, Amora stood at the glass entrance of the supermarket, clad in her faded green uniform with a plastic badge that read, Amora, Staff. The city buzzed all around her, the sharp beeps of impatient drivers, the chatter of passers-by, and the roar of traffic. She had only been working there for 2 weeks, and though the days were long, she greeted each one with a smile. Inside the store, she moved between aisles, organizing products, restocking empty shelves, and assisting shoppers. Her outward cheer concealed a deep sadness. She had lost her parents in a tragic fire the year before and had since been completely on her own. With no siblings and no extended family to support her, she survived by renting a cramped, weather-worn room in a neglected compound. The roof leaked during heavy rain, and at night, she often heard mice scrambling above her ceiling. Still, Amora rose before dawn every day, cleaned herself up, and made it to work without complaint. During her break, Amora sat alone behind the store, on a cracked wooden bench, holding a bottle of lukewarm water she wasn't drinking. Her mind wandered back to her past, especially the life she once had. Only a year ago, she was a second-year medical student. Her dream was to become a nurse, to care for the sick and helpless. That dream was her driving force. But after her parents died, reality crashed down hard. Tuition was no longer an option. She had to withdraw. There was no money for books, let alone food. She blinked quickly, trying to hold back tears, and whispered to the sky, "I tried. I really tried." Her voice trembled. She remembered how she packed her bags the day she left campus. Her roommate had cried. One of her lecturers told her to stay strong. But kind words couldn't pay school fees. She had no uncles or aunts willing or able to help. Since then, she'd taken on any job she could find, selling vegetables, doing laundry, and now this job at the supermarket. Her break ended. She stood up, wiped her eyes, and wore her smile again. Though her heart remained heavy, her face glowed with practiced cheer. She had learned one thing in the city: everyone had their own burdens. No one had time for yours. With that, she walked back into the store, smile intact, pain hidden beneath the surface. In a nearby office building not far from the supermarket, a man named Chika sat quietly behind a mahogany desk. It was the same chair his late father, Chief Namdi Dyke, had used for over 3 decades. The room was airy, the window slightly open to allow a gentle breeze in. Chika was now the CEO of Dyke Holdings. Though he was wealthy, young, and well-educated, Chika had always followed his father's most valuable advice: live simple, stay quiet, and never show too much. He wasn't one to flaunt his wealth. Outside the corporate world, most people wouldn't even recognize him. He dressed modestly, avoided cameras, and preferred to keep a low profile. But inside him lived a burden, an empire to protect and a legacy to uphold. Chika's mother, Madam Grace Dyke, a dignified woman in her early 60s, had grown more thoughtful since the loss of her husband. She now lived with Chika in their family estate, a peaceful and elegant place. One quiet evening, she sat on a velvet couch sipping zobo from a wine glass when Chika walked in. "Good evening, Mama," he greeted with a warm smile. Grace looked at him and shook her head with a sigh. "Chika, come. Sit down. We need to talk." He sat, already sensing where the conversation was headed. "You're always at meetings or in front of a screen," she began. "But when will you make time for yourself? When will you bring home a woman I can proudly call my daughter?" Chika smiled politely. "Mama, I'm trying. It's hard to find someone genuine." She set her drink on the table and leaned forward. "You're not a boy anymore, my son. I want to see you smile again. I want to carry my grandchildren before I leave this world." "I understand," he replied gently. "And I promise, When I find the right person, you'll be the first to know. She nodded slowly. All I want is a kind, humble woman. That's enough for me. Chika smiled again, but deep in his chest, he carried the same question. How will I know if someone loves me, not my name? It was a hot afternoon at the supermarket. Shoppers moved in and out, chatting, haggling, and making purchases. Among them, a frail-looking older woman entered quietly. She wore a simple blue wrapper and rubber slippers. Though she looked tired, her steps were steady. She walked directly to the cooking aisle and picked up a small bottle of groundnut oil. At the checkout counter, she placed the bottle down with a gentle smile. Please, dear, I'm in a hurry. Rain's coming soon, and I need to reach home. The cashier, a young lady smacking her chewing gum, rolled her eyes. Madam, where's your money? The woman patted her pockets, frowning. Her face changed. Oh no. I must have left my purse at home. I'm sorry, dear. Let me just rush back and... The cashier cut her off. So you came to disturb us. You don't even have money and you're here buying oil. Customers nearby began to stare. The old woman tried to speak again, but the cashier was already mocking her. This is not a welfare center, beg. If you no get money, go. The elderly woman's hands trembled as she looked down, ashamed. Amora, a few steps away arranging items on a nearby shelf, had heard everything. Her heart pounded as she rushed over. She saw the scene, the mocking cashier, the distressed woman, and the amused spectators. What's going on here? Amora asked. The cashier scoffed. This woman no get shusha. She wm buy oil like say we day do promo. Amora turned to the elderly woman gently. Ma, is this true? The woman nodded slowly. Yes, my daughter. I'm truly sorry. I needed just this one bottle, but I left my purse at home. Without hesitation, Amora turned to the cashier and said, Please, give her the oil. The cashier's brow lifted. From where? Take the money from my salary, Amora said firmly. It's just one bottle. The woman's eyes watered. My child. Thank you. Amora smiled warmly and slipped the oil into the woman's nylon bag. You're welcome, Ma. Go home safe. She was about to return to her shelf when the woman called out, Wait, my dear. Amora turned. You didn't have to help. So why did you? The woman asked, her voice soft. Amora shrugged lightly. Because you needed help. And I could help. What's your name? The woman asked. Amora. That's a beautiful name, the woman said with a kind smile. Mine is Grace. Amora smiled back. Nice to meet you, Ma. Grace placed her hand on Amora's shoulder. God bless you. I won't forget this. She walked out of the store, no longer looking down, but smiling. Amora stood for a long moment, staring after her. There was something different about that woman. Madame Grace returned to her home that evening, the small bottle of groundnut oil still in her hands. Her expression was calm, but her mind was racing. She walked into the living room where Chika was seated, typing something on his laptop. The moment he looked up and saw her face, he paused. Mama, are you all right? You look thoughtful. Grace slowly lowered herself onto the sofa beside him, the bottle resting on her lap. I went to the supermarket you recently invested in, she said softly. I needed just one bottle of oil. But, Chika, I forgot my purse at home. His brows furrowed. What happened? The cashier insulted me. Right there, in front of everyone, she replied. She talked to me like I was dirt, like I was a joke. Chika's expression hardened. What? Which branch? The new one. Your company just acquired it, she answered. His jaw clenched. How could they treat you like that? Grace placed a gentle hand on his arm. Calm down. Let me finish. She took a breath before continuing. As I was trying to explain myself, a young lady walked up. She asked what was happening. When she heard my story, she didn't ask for permission or fuss. She just told the cashier to hand me the oil and remove the cost from her own salary. Chika blinked, stunned. She said that. Grace nodded, her face softening. Yes. She didn't know who I was. She just saw someone in need. I asked her name. She said it was Amora. Chika leaned back in silence. The name echoed in his mind. I want to see her again, Grace said. I want to thank her properly. She touched my heart. You will, Chika replied calmly. I'll make sure of it. He paused, then added, but that cashier? She's going to face consequences. Please, Chika, his mother said gently. Don't be too harsh. I won't be unreasonable, he assured her. But no one treats you like that and walks away untouched. A stillness settled between them. But in Chika's mind, a plan had already begun forming. Later that night, Chika sat in his study, flipping his phone between his fingers. He stared at the ceiling for a while before dialing a number. Hello, Oki, he said into the phone. I need your help. Oki was more than a personal guard. He was Chika's most trusted ally. Yes, sir, came the voice on the other end. What's the task? I want you to find out everything you can about a girl named Amora. She works at our new supermarket branch, Chika replied. She helped my mum. I'll send her details. Understood, Oki said. I'll start first thing in the morning. The next day, Oki arrived at the supermarket. He stayed outside, watching quietly. He saw Amora at work, always smiling, helping customers, arranging shelves with care. At one point, she stopped what she was doing to tie a child's loose shoelace. Another time, she helped an elderly man carry his shopping basket. Oki spoke to a few of her co-workers. That girl. She's special, one said. She's suffered a lot, another added. But she never complains. After work, Oki followed her at a distance. She took a dusty, quiet road and entered a rundown compound. Her room was tucked in the back, a small, weathered space with a broken window frame. For 3 more days, Oki observed her routine: work, kindness, and solitude. When he returned to the mansion, Chika met him in the private lounge. So, what did you find? Chika asked. She's clean. No drama. Lost her parents recently. Lives alone. Works hard. Never begs. She's got integrity, Oki summarized, handing over a small written report. Chika read the paper silently. A line at the top stood out. Lost both parents. Lives modestly. Still smiles. He whispered aloud. She's gone through all that and still walks with her head high. He closed his eyes, deeply moved. When Dad died, I almost broke. And yet this girl, she lost everything, and still chose to be kind. He walked to the window and looked out, though his thoughts were far away. She didn't ask for help, he said to himself. She gave help, with nothing to her name. He returned to his seat, more curious than ever. Who are you really, Amora? He whispered. And why does something about you feel so different? The sky had darkened slightly as Amora walked home, her feet dragging after a long shift. Her body was tired, and her mind heavy, but she didn't complain. She was used to the routine. Then came a loud honk. A black car rolled up beside her, the tinted window sliding down slowly. Inside was a well-dressed woman with warm, gentle eyes. Something about her face felt familiar, but Amora couldn't place it immediately. The car door opened, and the woman stepped out, elegant, graceful, and clearly someone of wealth. "Hello, my dear," she said with a calm smile. "Do you remember me?" Amora stared in surprise. Then it clicked. "You're the woman from the supermarket. The one who forgot her purse." The woman laughed gently. "Yes. My name is Grace." "You found me?" Amora asked, confused. "I went back to the supermarket and was told your shift had ended." "I've been trying to find you," Grace replied. "Why?" Amora asked softly. Grace's eyes softened. "Because you helped me when no one else did. And I haven't stopped thinking about you." Amora looked down, a little shy. "It was nothing, Ma. I just didn't want you to go home without what you needed." Grace smiled warmly and opened the car door. "Please come with me. I'd really love to talk with you." Amora hesitated. Go with you. Just for a while. I promise it's nothing to fear, Grace reassured her. Her voice was kind, her presence safe. Amora paused, then nodded slowly. Okay, Ma. She entered the car. The vehicle pulled away and headed for a part of town she had never been to. The car pulled into a massive compound surrounded by flowers, golden lights, and elegant statues. Amora's eyes widened. She whispered to herself, "This place, it's like a palace." Grace led her inside a stunning mansion with polished floors, shining chandeliers, and furniture that seemed carved from dreams. "Come, my dear," Grace said kindly. "Don't be afraid." They sat together in the living room, where Grace turned to her with soft, thoughtful eyes. "I want to share something with you," she said. Amora nodded quietly. "This morning, I planned to cook something special," Grace began. "But when I checked the kitchen, I realized we were out of cooking oil. Our cook had traveled. She usually stocks the kitchen. So I quickly got dressed and went to the supermarket. But when I got to the counter, I realized I had left my debit card at home." Amora's eyes grew wide. "I was embarrassed," Grace continued. "The people around me stared. The cashier treated me like I was nobody. I felt so small." Amora lowered her eyes. The memory returned vividly. Grace reached out and held her hand. "But then you came. You didn't judge. You didn't ask too many questions. You just stepped forward and helped. That moment touched me deeply." Tears began to well in Amora's eyes. "I didn't think it was such a big deal, Ma," she said quietly. "To you, it may have been small," Grace replied. "But to me, it meant everything." A silence passed between them, full of emotion. "That's why I brought you here," Grace said. "Because I want to do something for you." Amora looked up, confused. Grace got up and walked to a nearby drawer. She returned with a brown envelope and a small box. "I know you didn't ask for anything," she said gently. "But please accept this. It's a small token of appreciation." She handed Amora the envelope. Amora opened it slowly. Inside was a bundle of cash. Then Grace opened the box, a shining gold chain and bracelet nestled inside. "These were mine in my younger days," she said. "They mean a lot to me. But I want you to have them." Amora's eyes filled with tears. She looked at the money, then the jewelry, and slowly pushed them back toward Grace. "No, Ma," she said softly. "I didn't help you because I wanted anything in return." Grace looked stunned. "You're sure?" Amora nodded. "I've known hardship, Ma. I know what it's like to be desperate and ignored. That day, I simply did what I hoped someone else would do for me." Grace clutched the envelope to her chest. She was deeply moved. "You're different," she said. "Truly different." Amora smiled through her tears. Unbeknownst to both of them, Chika had been watching quietly from the hallway. He'd heard everything, and what he saw shook him. He stepped into the living room calmly. "Mama," he said. Grace lit up with joy. "Chika, come. This is the young lady I told you about, Amora." Amora turned, and her eyes widened. It was him, the mysterious businessman she had seen in magazines and online articles. She stood up quickly, startled. "Good evening, sir," she said respectfully. Chika nodded with a small smile. "So, you're the one who helped my mother?" She nodded. "Yes, sir." "I watched just now," he said. "Why did you refuse the money and the jewelry?" Amora looked at him, then at Grace, and back at Chika. "I didn't help her for a reward. I helped because it was the right thing to do." Chika was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That's rare. Very rare." He sat opposite her, still observing. Grace spoke up again. "Why won't you take the gift?" Amora was quiet for a moment, then said, "Because kindness shouldn't come with a price tag. I believe in earning what I receive. That's the only way I can stand tall and feel proud." Chika smiled. "Then in that case, I want to offer you something better." Amora blinked. "Sir." "I want you to become my personal assistant at our head office," he said. "It comes with good pay, and accommodation. Amora's lips parted slightly in shock. Her heart raced. A job, she said slowly. Chika nodded. But then her smile faded. She looked down, unsure. What's wrong? Grace asked gently. Amora spoke hesitantly. It's just, I never finished school. After my parents died, I had to drop out. I'm not qualified for such a role. Chika leaned forward. That's not a problem, he said. We'll enroll you in a short training. And I'll personally sponsor your return to school, online classes, flexible timing. If you're willing. Tears welled up in Amora's eyes. Yes. Yes, I'm willing, she whispered. She paused, then added, but, why are you doing all this for me? You don't even know me. Chika looked at her steadily. Maybe I don't know you fully, he said. But I saw your heart. You helped a stranger when no one else did. You turned down money. That says everything I need to know. He hesitated, then added, I have a confession. After my mum told me about you, I asked my personal guard to find out more. I wanted to understand who you were so I could thank you properly. Amora was quiet. I read your file, Chika continued. You've suffered, yet you never gave up. You lifted my mother's spirit that day, and now I want to lift yours. Amora placed a hand gently over her heart. Thank you, sir, she said softly. Thank you, Ma. Each morning, Amora walked into the tall glass building that housed Dyke Holdings with a fresh smile on her face. Now dressed in sleek corporate wear, she held her files close and carried herself with grace. Though she had never worked in a formal office before, Amora adapted quickly. As Chika's personal assistant, she was attentive, organized, and incredibly sharp. She managed his calendar with precision, answered his calls, arranged his meetings, and ensured his files were always in place. Not once did she forget a single detail. Her discipline was impressive. After office hours, she would return to her new staff apartment, a quiet and well-furnished flat just a short drive from the company. But instead of resting, she opened her laptop each evening and joined her online university classes. She studied deep into the night, determined to make the most of her second chance. Chika had no idea at first how hard she was working outside the office, until his driver casually mentioned, Olga, that your assistant day read book tire. Even inside car, NA textbook she day open. That sparked Cheka's curiosity. He began to notice more. The way Amora stayed focused. How she answered questions with calm intelligence. How she treated everyone, from the receptionist to the top board members, with equal respect. And then, something unexpected began to happen. Chika found himself lingering around her desk, sometimes with no clear reason. He'd walk by just to ask, how's your day going? Even though he already knew. Sometimes, he'd catch himself smiling at her handwriting on a note. Or rereading a text she had sent him, reminding him of a meeting. It wasn't just admiration, it was interest. One afternoon, after a long strategy meeting, Chika stayed behind in his office while Amora came in with a file he had requested. She was about to leave when he stopped her. Amora. She turned. Yes, sir. He smiled. Can I ask you something? She nodded, curious. You've only been here a short while, he said, but you handle this job like someone who's been doing it for years. How did you learn all this? Amora paused, then sat gently in the chair across from him. I didn't have a choice, she said. Chika leaned forward slightly, listening. After my parents died, I had to grow up overnight, she continued. I did any job I could find, cleaning, selling, waiting tables. Every job taught me something. I observed people. I listened. I learned. So, when this opportunity came, I was ready. I told myself I wouldn't mess it up. Chika nodded slowly. Her words sank deep into his chest. You're doing more than just okay, he said softly. You're exceptional. Amora smiled gently and looked down. Thank you, sir. Chika smiled too. But deep inside, he knew, this wasn't just business anymore. Something real was forming. Back at the Dyke mansion, Madame Grace sat on the couch, sipping her evening tea. The television played softly in the background, but she wasn't paying attention. Her mind was elsewhere. She had noticed something subtle but consistent. Every time Amora came by the house to deliver a file or greet her, Chika's entire mood shifted. His voice became softer. His eyes followed her as she moved. His smile lingered longer than usual. Grace had seen that look before. Years ago. On the face of her late husband, when he had fallen in love with her. Later that evening, after dinner, she walked down the hallway and gently knocked on Chika's bedroom door. "Come in," he called. She entered slowly. He was seated on his bed, typing on his laptop. He smiled when he saw her. "Mama, everything okay?" She sat beside him and placed her hand on his arm. "Chika, I want to speak with you," she said gently. He closed his laptop immediately. "I'm listening." She looked into his eyes. "I've been watching you," she began. "And I see something." Chika raised his eyebrows slightly but said nothing. "I see the way your face lights up every time Amora comes into the room. I see how you linger near her desk. How your eyes soften around her." Chika looked down and chuckled quietly. He didn't deny it. "You're right, Mama," he said at last. "I like her. I really do." Grace's eyes twinkled. "And I'm glad," she said. "Because Amora is rare. She's not loud, not showy. She carries peace, and her heart is genuine. Women like her aren't easy to find." Chika nodded slowly. "I didn't plan for this. But whenever I see her, I feel calm, safe." Grace smiled and held his hand. "Then don't waste time," she said. "Talk to her. Tell her how you feel." Chika hesitated. "But what if she doesn't feel the same way?" "You'll never know unless you ask," Grace replied. "And even if she says no, at least you'll have peace knowing you were honest." She stood and walked toward the door. Just before stepping out, she turned back. "A woman like Amora is a blessing. Don't wait too long, my son. Seeing you marry someone with a heart like hers, that would be my greatest joy." Chika sat still, heart full. He knew she was right. And now, he knew what he had to do. One early morning, Amora arrived at the Dyke residence with an urgent envelope in hand. It contained an important business document that needed Chika's signature before 9 a.m. The maid welcomed her in with a warm smile, and as she entered the living room, she greeted Madam Grace. "Good morning, Ma," she said. Grace smiled. "Good morning, my dear. You're always early." Amora held up the envelope. "I just need Mr. Chika to sign this quickly." Grace stood up slowly. "Before you go to him, can I speak with you for a moment?" Amora nodded, curious. Grace took her hand and led her gently to the sofa. She looked into Amora's eyes and spoke softly. "My daughter, you've been coming here often. And every time you do, this house feels calmer. I watch you. You're respectful. You're graceful. And you carry peace wherever you go." Amora lowered her eyes, unsure of where the conversation was going. Grace leaned in, her tone even more sincere. "I'll go straight to the point. Would you ever consider being with my son? As his wife?" The question hit Amora like a gust of wind. She blinked quickly. "Ma?" she asked, unsure she heard right. "I mean it," Grace said. "Would you consider it? I've seen the way he looks at you. And I see how you carry yourself. You're the kind of woman I've prayed for." Amora's heart thudded. She clutched the envelope in her hand. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. Grace smiled. "You don't need to answer now. Just think about it. A woman like you is rare." Amora nodded slowly. "Yes, Ma. I'll think about it." As she walked toward Chika's room, her thoughts were all over the place. Weeks passed. One quiet afternoon, Amora sat alone at her desk. She was typing a report but found herself distracted. Her mind drifted. Could I really marry someone like Chika? She wondered. He was smart, humble, and kind. She admired his strength, but she also feared it, feared how different his world was from hers. She sighed, shook her head, and whispered, "Stop dreaming, Amora. A man like that, he could never truly want someone like you." Just then, A voice came from behind. You talk to yourself now. She turned and found Chika standing at the door, smiling. You startled me, she said with a laugh. He walked in, holding a document. Here, he said. But that's not the only reason I came. She looked up. Is something wrong? Chika scratched his head, nervous for the first time. It's Friday, he said. Do you have any plans this evening? Amora blinked. No, not really. Good, Chika replied, smiling. Then join me for a drink. Nothing formal, just a simple evening. She hesitated for a second, then smiled playfully. As long as we don't talk about spreadsheets and meetings. Chika laughed. Deal. That evening, the two of them sat at a quiet restaurant. The lighting was soft, music calm, and the wine flowed gently. Amora looked around in awe. This place is beautiful, she said. I've never been somewhere like this. Chika smiled. You deserve it. All evening, he made her laugh. He listened when she spoke. He asked about her dreams, her goals, her past. Then, just as their plates were being cleared, he looked into her eyes. Amora, he said softly. I've been thinking about this for a while. I didn't want to rush you. But I can't keep it in any longer. I like you. I want to be more than just your boss. Amora's hand froze halfway to her glass. I like you too, she said quietly. Then she raised a finger gently. But before we go further, I want to say something. Chika leaned in. You gave me a chance when no one else did. You gave me a job, an education, and treated me like I mattered. I'll never forget that. But none of those are the reason I like you. Chika's expression softened. I like you, Amora continued, because you are kind. You don't brag. You treat everyone with dignity. Even with all your success, you're just real. She paused, then added, I want to finish school first. That's very important to me. It'll take 2 more years. I want to focus on that before starting a family. Chika didn't hesitate. I support you completely, he said. You've worked hard. I'll never be the one to slow you down. Amora smiled in relief. Then she added with a playful grin, but we can still get married, right? Chika laughed. Of course. Just don't expect me to help with your online exams. She giggled. Too late. I already planned that part. They clinked glasses, and that night, something real and lasting began. Not just love, but a partnership built on respect.